Good afternoon. I'm Philip Lewis. I am a Unison Branch Health and Safety Officer, and I serve on a number of committees within Unison on health and safety. What I'm going to give you this evening is the way in which you can protect yourself. No doubt most of you are not in a trade union. First step is to join one, because that's very important. That helps to bolster your legal rights, and you don't have to pay for lawyers because the unions will cover that. Also, to get elected as health and safety representatives, you should be a trade union member to do that. Now, a quick history of health and safety in the UK. The first factory inspector came into being in the 1800s, and one of the first inspectors were women. They were inspecting the conditions of children who worked in those factories and to ensure their health and safety. As we all know, it wasn't a success because the number of deaths that were recorded, but they did save some, so there was an upside to that. The legislation that we're looking at today is the legislation that's come into being from 1974 onwards, because that's the legislation you'll be working on. The 74 Health and Safety at Works Act was put together by the late Michael Foot MP, who was Minister for Employment at the time. He felt that the safety legislation in the country was a mess. There was bits of legislation all over the place, and he decided to combine that legislation to bring it into one umbrella. Because prior to that, we had the Factories Act 1960 and the Office, Shops and Railway Premises Act 1963. I came under the Office, Shops and Railway Premises Act when I was working at the railway, and that's when I became a health and safety rep in the 1970s, mid to late 1970s. And I've been doing it ever since. So, as you can see, I'm a lot older now and a lot wiser in many ways, because of the actions of employers have teach me a bad lesson in some cases. In other cases, we've won some brilliant victories on health and safety at work. The issue today we should be looking at is how do we use these bits of legislation, because the Health and Safety at Works Act is legislation that you can use. In other words, as an individual in a member of a trade union, you use Section 7 of the Health and Safety at Works Act to protect yourself and others, because that's a legal duty upon employees. The Section 2 of the Act is the duties for the employer, that they must take care of all workers under their control. Now, in between then and now, we've had a series of regulations, and these regulations were been set out prior to us leaving the European Union. It was a part of the European six-pack of regulations, and those regulations covered PPE, personal protective equipment, and also conditions in the workplace, the welfare regulations. And that's a key one you need to look at. And I suggest that you get a copy of the regulations from the TUC. They have a book, Hazards, and also they have a book on rights at work, which those two together will give you a clear understanding of how you protect yourself. You have a legal right to withdraw your work from the employer if you believe you're about to be put in imminent danger, loss of life. And that is Section 44 of the Employment Regulations 1996. Now, you need to do that carefully. You need to be able to have your facts so you can show that you were put at risk. Many of you are in precarious working, or what they call zero-hour contracts as well. Working in hotels, working in bars and clubs, and other type of zero-hour contract jobs, delivering parcels and things like that. You need to ensure that your personal safety is protected. You need to make sure if you're working in a kitchen, for example, that you have the appropriate attire. In other words, in there they have whites, white overalls, apron, hats, and that should be provided by your employer, and it should be maintained by them. Also, you should have, as a part of your induction into the workplace, is what they call it an induction course, where you're briefed on the safety aspects of the job to make sure that you don't have an injury or a workplace illness. That bit, workplace illness, is very rarely talked about. It's like a sin. It should not be mentioned. But it's quite a few workers have actually died due to workplace illness. And in particular, mesothelioma, which is a killer that people get exposed to in old buildings if the structure is not sound and there's breaks in the sealant of the asbestos. People can die of that. It can take up to 40 years before it appears into a person's lungs, and that it's very difficult to fight, but there are ways of doing that. If you feel you've been exposed to that, you register it with your doctor, with your trade union representatives, and that should you get it later in life, you have the evidence to protect you and make sure you get the appropriate compensation. But compensation is not the thing in health and safety. We like to do one clear thing, is to eliminate the hazard. There is a pyramid of mitigations that we look at when dealing with health and safety. And at the top of that pyramid is remove the hazard. And it's only when you get down to the bottom of that pyramid that you get the point where you need personal protective equipment. It may be a face mask, maybe a visor for splashes and things like that. It may be gloves and protective overalls. These are clothing that you put over your own clothing to protect you from scalds, burns, and sparks coming off of machinery, so you don't have that problem. Usually you have a bib with that, you wear with that as well. And looking at the other part of health and safety, as people are no doubt aware, I'm sure you've seen it yourself, the number of road traffic accidents that occur. And yet in this country we still not have the appropriate regulations to protect workers who drive for their living. If they have an accident due to driving at work because of pressures of times, getting the loads delivered. The only way they got recourse is via the police. And in some cases, it's not recorded as a workplace accident, and it should be. I believe that if you are part of that accident or involved, you should ensure that you report that through the Health and Safety Executive as a Withdrawal incident, especially if you're off work for more than 7 days. That's important. Any accident or illness that's created you to be off work for more than 7 days should be reported to Health and Safety Executive of in this country. Now, some of you work in Hong Kong, no doubt, and you're over here and you'll be seeking work opportunities here. I think it's very important that you protect yourself, protect your workmates, join a union, and also look at the TUC information. There's a TUC publications on the internet, and there are a series of publications there which are very useful. And if you're a member of a trade union, they have a series of publications themselves. If you become a safety rep, the golden book is called the Brown Book of regulations that protect you as a health and safety rep. It gives you rights in relation to forming of a health and safety committee, and it gives you rights to information from the employer. If you're not being properly treated under that could be a very serious problem for the employer when you report it to the HSE. Now, when you report it to the HSE, the Health and Safety Executive, you report it under a notification of concern, which you can actually do online. You can make those complaints, and you can whistle blow on there as an individual. There are a place for that on the website, so that you can do that and help to protect your workers, particularly if you're in a workplace where the management are very aggressive and hostile. The best way to get round them is go behind the bloody back and tell the HSE what these little buggers are up to, because you have the right of being protected. Some small businesses will be coming under the local council for their health and safety, and it is a good idea if you're working for a small firm is to make yourself known if you're a safety rep to that local authority, so you can have a working relationship with them on the issues of health and safety in the job. Now, I would like to have gone longer, but my bloody breathing is driving me nuts. So I will be there live on the weekend, so that you can ask me questions on health and safety. I'll do my utmost to assist you in that. And all I say, I hope you enjoyed the courses that you've been doing over the week, and I'll see you then.